security is something I think that is important to all of us, and the conversation many times is not around security or no security, but what are the best ways to get at it. So I hope that we can listen and learn from each other.
While upholding the rule of law, we must devise a system that is both compassionate and just. I believe that immigration is a matter of national security, domestic tranquility, and national identity. The immigration debate does not belong to any one political party. It is not relegated to one socioeconomic group. I believe it is a moral issue, it is a national issue, and we should not allow partisan politics to divide us or stop or stifle the debate. The time, I believe, has come in America for us to forge a national consensus. America is a country of immigrants. It's a melting pot of individuals from various ethnicities and cultures. It is this rich heritage of immigration on which this country was established, and in accordance of which, using and pursuing a just immigration policy, this country will continue to thrive. America, all of us, indeed the world, deserves a just and fair immigration policy, one that begins with securing, not closing the borders, one that enforces the laws, and one that offers the opportunity for earned legal status. I think inactivity and partisan politics and the stalemates that we see are a detriment to all of us in America. I think it again affects the highest level of national security. It affects who we are as Americans, and it ultimately leads to divisive rhetoric where we pit one person against another. It is imperative that now we act in a bipartisan way to address this most important issue of immigration.
Christians have long understood that God ordained the state chiefly to uphold order, enforce the law, provide security to its people, and punish the wicked. But in recent immigration policy pronouncements from some church groups, security and law enforcement have been minimized. For example, the Episcopal Church's bishops recently questioned whether the civil state has any right to restrict immigration except to exclude the most egregiously criminal. Does the civil law matter at all? Christ thought so, and of course he commanded compliance with it in terms of obedience to Caesar. Mainline Protestant elites, and increasingly some in the evangelical world, seem uncomfortable with national sovereignty as a concept in the political sphere. Christians, if so called, should cooperate with other people of goodwill to advocate state policies that safeguard human dignity. They should also holistically understand that human dignity, justice, and grace also entail the state's law enforcement and security obligations on which all civil justice ultimately depends. Our fallen nature warns against any kind of sweeping, so-called comprehensive political solutions. Most human problems are instead addressed incrementally. Effectively addressing the large number of illegal immigrants currently in America likely will involve neither mass legalization nor mass deportation. Hundreds of thousands of illegals voluntarily return to their native land annually. Some national consensus for incremental legalization may develop if and when borders are secured, employers uphold the law, visa deadlines are enforced, and the population of illegals has gradually diminished over the years. Such a national consensus is probably postponed by adamant insistence on comprehensive immigration reform, with its strong emphasis on legalization.
The main thing I want to talk about today is the international dimensions of the immigration debate, and I want to build it around SB 1070 from Arizona. I think this is the one that sort of stirred things. It's going in a lot of different directions, and I think it's on people's minds right now. This domestic legislation has long-term effects on U.S. national security, a point that became a cornerstone of an argument by the Obama administration when it filed its lawsuit against 1070. There is a long history of U.S. international relations being affected by immigration debates dating back for more than a century. For Mexicans, the mistreatment of their citizens in the United States sparks especially strong reactions. This concept of Mexico de afuera was reinforced in 2007 when Mexican President Calderon, during his first State of the Nation address, emphasized, quote, "Where there is a Mexican, there is Mexico," end quote. The economic meltdown of 2007 caused by opportunistic politicians such as Arizona Senator Russell Pierce, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and Governor Brewer to employ a classic tactic of scapegoating. Such supporters of SB 1070 have overlooked the effect of the law on U.S.-Mexican relations, as well as the larger relationships with Latin America and the Third World. Beyond the pragmatic concerns of the anti-immigrant position of SB 1070, significant moral questions revolve around the law. In a larger sense, it speaks to the exceptionalism regarding America's place in the world. How a country responds to immigrants says a lot about how it views itself within the community of nations. The United States has and remains a nation of immigrants, as well as a defender of human rights. Too often in the past, the voices of hate have drowned out those of reason and compassion. Today, the United States stands at a crossroads and has an opportunity for change. The faith community must remain a leader in standing for what is right versus the demagogues. Being armed with information and viewing the world through a global lens remains a good starting point.
In terms of what we've already heard in terms of scripturally in Romans 13, talking about abiding by the law, it's important to recognize that abiding by the law is not mutually exclusive with trying to change the law so that it makes sense and is more humane. And that's what we do as immigration advocates at Church World Service and within the Interfaith Immigration Coalition. So the question is, are we doing that? Do we have policies in terms of national security that protect human dignity? We've seen in the past decade that spending along our border has quadrupled, while it has done absolutely nothing to reduce undocumented immigration to the United States. In fact, over the last decade, we've spent more than $139 billion on enforcement strategies along the border and interior enforcement, and still we have nearly 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. So there we see that what we're currently doing is ineffective. Not only is it ineffective, but it's also counterproductive. We've seen strategies recently like 287G and what's called secure communities that have actually reduced community safety in reducing people's likelihood of reporting crime. Immigrants who are afraid to report crime because they fear deportation if they present themselves to police. Even lawful permanent residents or citizens who may look like an immigrant find themselves afraid to report crime because of how they will be treated by police, or that their neighbor's door may be knocked on if they call in a crime and may be deported or detained as a result. In rethinking some of those pieces, bringing back due process to the immigration system, implementing detention reform so that we have codified standards for humane treatment, immigration reform that would provide an earned pathway to legal status for those who are undocumented, increase visas, as economists will say that we need to do, and also increase the accessibility of our ports of entry so people can actually come in legally, and emphasize community safety over this lofty idea of border enforcement as the first and foremost issue that needs to be addressed. Also refocusing our enforcement efforts in terms of combating human trafficking and human smuggling, and also addressing the root causes of migration.